Welcome, world, to Everybody Struggles. We have one of the most interesting, dopest, craziest, best cats I've ever met in my life. It's my brother, Hakim. What's going on, brother?
I'm here, man. I'm here. As I say, I'm out here.
I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me.
Thank you for having me.
Always. The crazy thing about Hakim, he is one of the most interesting, beautiful, amazing people that I've ever met. You know, he does Tai Chi, he's Buddhist. He's one of the craziest runners that I've seen in my entire life. He does trail running, marathon running, extreme running, anything you can think of when it comes to getting the mind, body, and soul together, that's what he does. I know a lot about you. Shit, the world probably might already know who you are. But if you could tell the rest of the people that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you're currently working on.
Okay. Thank you for having me. My name is Hakim Tafari. I'm originally from a place called Ipswich, which is about an hour and a half outside of London. Born and raised by some Jamaican parents. I have two sisters. One's passed away.
Sorry.
No worries. Several years back, and one's pretty much dead to me. So, and yeah, I've lived crazy. I've lived many lifetimes, mate. Many lifetimes. But there's many iterations of me. As you said before, I've been a practitioner of the martial arts, especially Tai Chi. I've studied praying mantis Kung Fu. I've studied the Filipino martial arts, in particular Arnis. I've studied Aikido. I've been in and out of so many different types of faiths and explored different types of movements, such as Islam. I was Sunni Muslim when I was 16, when I turned 16. Came to the States and converted to the nation, dabbled with the 5%, gained knowledge of self with the 5%. And, Rastafari I have a very strong faith in Rastafarianism. And, Taoism and now somewhat Buddhism. I'm a whole rainbow of sorts.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So let us know a little bit about what you've been working on.
So really the biggest thing that, I think the newest iteration of me is philanthropy. And, really doing a lot of fundraising. I'm working on this thing called the Speed Project, DIY, the TSP Fund, which is the Speed Project. It's something which is started off with these cats running from LA to Vegas. And now we're kind of building this outfit. I don't like to use the word virtual, but to where people are doing it all over the world and running as much as they can within 29 hours and 51 minutes, as many miles as they can, and doing it like a team or by themselves. So we're working with different organizations like Run Hope Work, the Running Charity, Track Girls. All these organizations are really pivotal in bringing BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color into the spectrum of running. There are some that are dealing with running and meditation and then bringing them back into the workplace from prisons and dealing with people with mental health and introducing them to running, and disenfranchised or, individuals that are stuck in low income housing, giving them a chance to run track and giving them a chance to learn what running and being in the space of running is about. So there's that. And then I'm working with the North Face brand, which is real big for me because I've grown up rocking North Face and
it's one of the illest brands ever.
And I had an opportunity to kind of challenge them and, add my voice to holding them accountable and if, seeing if they have equity within BIPOC spaces in running, and they jumped to the opportunity. And I had a really good conversation with one of the leading mountaineers for North Face, who's an OG. And me and him were on a mountaintop one day, and he said to me, let's get black and brown men up in the mountains. And then that led to me having a conversation with North Face that led me being part of this thing called Explore Fund Council, which is with Lena Waitham, you know, them and Master of None and so many other things. So she's on the council. Jimmy Chin, who is a world-renowned Nat Geo.
That's dope.
Dr. Ray Grant, who is this phenomenal female who is an environmentalist, who is another philanthropist, a doctor of wildlife. You've got Shanae Benjamin, who is this queer, amazing Black artist out of Brooklyn, New York. So I'm working with all these people and bringing my voice to a very whitewashed system and a very whitewashed space in trail running, mountain climbing, and all that stuff. And I'm bringing my voice into making a change and bringing more Black, Indigenous people of color relevant within outside spaces and making them feel safe and making them feel wanted.
And it's so beautiful because, like, you're starting to see that more. You're starting to see more people running. You're starting to see more people swimming, more people getting on bikes. Like, COVID was like the biggest blessing for some of us of color because we couldn't go to the gym. We couldn't really hang around a lot of people, but we can get together and exercise together.
Exactly. And then the beautiful thing is, especially for us, we have the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
You got Big Bear, you got Joshua Tree, you've got Runyon, you've got Griffith, you've got Culver City. So you got it all around you. And then there's places that people haven't even explored yet. And on top of that, you've got something like this everywhere in the States.
Mm-hmm.
You've got somewhere like this everywhere in the world where you can just go and escape and free your mind and charge and cultivate your body.
Right.
And cultivate your spirit at the same time.
And that's the most beautiful thing that you can have.
It really is. It's the key. It's the key to the universe and life itself. So
yeah. So now we're gonna talk a little more about yourself. What's the hardest thing you've ever dealt with in your life?
Woo! Life.
Yeah.
Contemplating life. You know, I mean, I've told this story so many times, but you know, one of the things that I remember was when I first. There was a time when I wasn't sure if I was really wanted by anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel like I had any existence within this planet or this earth.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there were several times I was going to contemplate suicide and I was going to take myself out. And when you're faced in some of those situations where you know, I tell a story that I was in front of a Buddhist temple and I had my Springfield right here. And I was like, do I go meditate or do I go blow my brains out?
Mm.
You know what I mean? When you're in situations where you only have $5 or $10 to feed your kids, and it's your weekend to look after your kids, and you've only got $5 or $10 to do whatever you're going to do with them. How hard that is on the psyche. You know, there's so many different things that I've been through, but I think contemplating life and being in that moment where I was going to take my life and it happening on very many occasions in that span of time was one of the hardest things. And then having to deal with the repercussions of leaving my kids without a father and just all the atrocities behind that. So that was really something that was really one of the hardest things in my life. And then divorce, you know, when you're a failure or you you feel like you failed your marriage, that really does something to the psyche too. Especially when I looked at my parents, and my parents have been together for 50 plus years. And here I am, and I lost my house, my white picket fence life. I lost my identity behind my kids and so forth. It's an eye opener.
So what did you do to learn how to overcome the suicidal thoughts, having a failed divorce? How did you overcome those obstacles or get through it?
I breathed a lot. I breathed a lot, and I did a lot of inner work. Sadhguru calls it inner engineering, right? We call it in the internal martial arts, we call it internal musings, diving deep into the well, shadow work, all those things. It was stuff that I had to do in order to regain some consciousness of my own self and my own psyche, and then leaning into those feelings of the darkness, the despair, the leaning into the suffering. And at that time, I didn't know what leaning into the suffering is. I thought if there was purgatory and hell, that I was living it, and I didn't see a way out of it. And I remember certain folks telling me there is a way out of it. You have to be patient, but you have to lean into it. And leaning into it basically meant doing all of those things, breathing, doing the shadow work, doing all of those. It was homework to earn those extra credits in life, karmically. So I had to learn how to have compassion for myself. I had to learn how to have love for myself.
That's so important.
Yeah, it's deep, and these are things that we take for granted. Compassion, learning how to have compassion. Like, people don't use that word a lot. Men don't use that word a lot. Men don't use the word vulnerability a lot. And I had to get vulnerable. I had to be vulnerable. I had to I've been so guarded and so trapped that in order for me to get the help that I really needed, I had to open up. And I had to somewhat, in order to go through that suffering, in order to find the liberation out of that suffering, I had to open up and be vulnerable, and show a self that I didn't know that I could show. And in that, there was a lot of things that I learned about myself because I was vulnerable, and I had trained professionals who knew how to deal with that vulnerability, who had been in certain situations like that, to help guide me. And Buddhism was one of those things. Buddhism really taught me how to really look inward. So staring at a wall for an hour, half an hour to an hour in complete silence will teach you a whole lot about yourself. And then running. Because when you're on that road, and for me, when I started running, I was on a road, I was road running. And when you're on that road, you have all these thoughts going at the same time. And when you run, especially when you run long distance and you're running endurance, you have time to compartmentalize all those things. Okay, I shouldn't have ate that. Okay, why did I treat that person like that? Okay, I need to be better in parenting with that child. Okay, why don't you take that child on a date, just you and her? Okay, this is what I need to do to make sure that I pay the bills. And these are the things that I would constantly have in my head when I ran. And it was therapy.
That's all whenever I hear you talk about it or we have conversations, that's what I implemented in my life, and it's helped a lot.
So it was therapy, and it was a beautiful therapy. So you combine mindfulness and the meditation aspect, and then you add the running. Those were both kind of like my therapist before I met my therapist. And that was my therapy. So I could cry on my run. I could be emotional on my run. I could laugh at myself on my run. I could get angry on my run. And at the same time, I could do all of those within my meditation.
Mm-hmm.
You might not see it because I'm like this,
Right.
but all of those feelings are going throughout my mind in those meditations.
You can feel it inside. At the end of the day, that's what you got to do.
And in that is where you get the true answers.
Breaking it down. So the next thing is, you kind of talked more about it in the first question that I asked you. But what are some of the life struggles that you've had besides the divorce and, suicide?
Self-doubt, depression, self-confidence. We were joking about having Jamaican parents, West Indian parents,
Mm-hmm.
Having to live up to a certain, and that was big for me for many, many years. And it was big for me around other humans of having to either prove myself or be,
Right.
Be that guy, be that person. And as I've gotten older and a lot more hip to the game, so to speak, a lot of that shit didn't even really matter.
Not at all?
A lot of it didn't even really matter.
Isn't it crazy when you get it?
I look at things and I'm like, wow, did I really do that? And was I really meant to do that? And then you realize, no, not really. You didn't really need to do that.
No.
So, you learn a lot. 47 years on this planet, you learn a lot. And yeah.
So what did you do to overcome that? How did you, learn to get through it?
Again, one of the ongoing sentiments I hear a lot of people saying is having people around you that you trust and that you can, I use the word compassion very freely because that's something that I I really, really, really love to use because it's Tai Chi, right?
Mm-hmm.
When somebody is coming at you at a certain way, they can be belligerent and in your face and yada, yada. By taking that in and thinking about it and before retaliating, but coming with a calm mind and reflecting that back, who's going to look like the idiot?
They are. You already know.
Because I'm already here and I'm already calm and you're out there looking like a damn idiot. You know what I mean? So for me, one of the things that I've really learned is being patient, leaning into my feelings. Therapy has taught me that communication is very key.
Right.
Being able to distinguish and dismantle toxic energy was a game changer for me. And I used to be somebody that would feel sorry for somebody even as much as toxic as they were. And there's this time where you have to let some toxic shit go.
Yeah.
And toxicity go. And, I'm on some Maria Cotto type shit where if it doesn't serve me and I can't pack it and I can't organize it in a certain way, then it doesn't need to be in my wardrobe. And if life was a wardrobe, then I've purged all the stuff that I don't need in my wardrobe and I keep it nice and organized to where I've got my business casual, my summer gear, my when I go to the club flex, and that's how I am with my brethren, that's how I am with my sisters, my family. I've got it all compartmentalized because you have to.
Yeah.
Right? And one thing that I'm learning about my partner is organization and planning. And more so, it's really planning ahead, making sure that you're making wise decisions in these plans, thinking them through, and making sure that as you're thinking them through and you're calculating and you're being calculated with your steps, that your follow-up and your follow-through is just as important and valuable. And then not being afraid to lean into dark moments, because in those dark moments, you find the real answers. And it took me years and years in going through darkness in order to find that. But that's all part of shadow work. And you can't run away from it. There's an old saying that you cannot run away from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember an old wise African drummer by the name of Olatunji says, you can look for the truth here, and you can look for the truth here, and you can look for the truth here. But at the end of the day, the truth is right here.
It's real.
So with that being said, I've just learned to navigate through certain spaces, and especially in life, in a very, very simplistic, but very calculated way.
You have to be strategic.
You do. And that's where, things like the art of war come in, and the 48 powers, because you have to learn certain jewels in order to move and navigate through this life, especially as a black-bodied human on this planet, where we're getting picked off and killed like flies every day, and where just, we are not dealt with a certain privilege like certain other folks are.
Right.
So we have to navigate and maneuver ourselves in a certain way, almost like a ninja within the system. And you have to be quiet, and you have to be, no, let me take that back. You have to be skillful and stealth-worthy, like.
Know when to speak, know when to be silent, and be strategic about it.
Silent weapons for silent wars.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's how I learned how to.
And see, that's the thing, like, asking you these questions and hearing it is amazing to me, because some of the things that you say I've been applying to myself, but then also too, it's nice to hear from somebody else, because you're getting that refresher again. It's like, oh.
It's like the refresher course. Yeah. It's like the summary, and you're seeing the summary.
I'm doing this right.
But that's it though.
Right.
That's
and this is the reason why I wanted to do this, and to make a platform for people that are thinking these same things, but they're scared to live on it. I was scared. I was scared to be my natural self, because my family wanted me to be a certain way, because we want you to have money, we want you to have success, and we want you to have stability, we want you to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But then I wasn't happy there. So it's like, what do? Do I continue to keep leading myself in a trap that they're going into, or do I live my purpose, my life, the things I want to do? And so that's why when I'm hearing it, I'm like, yes.
And you said something, and that I hear with so many, especially the elders, is that I want to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to live my life and just be comfortable. But I will tell you that we have thrived as a people in being in comfortable situations.
That's why we are where we are now, from these many small moons that we've dealt with, because the bigger moons are what we've brought to this world to where things are now. And I think people are starting to see it.
So, being in somewhere like Wyoming, where it's a seabed of whiteness, and I'm like one of very few, many black bodies, but yet I'm hitting that trail, and I'm running up that mountain, and I'm talking to God. Do you honestly think I give a fuck about all those people down there that don't care about me? No. I'm out here living my best life, running up a mountain, enjoying life, enjoying nature, enjoying Tao, and having conversations with the divine creator, however you call him or her.
Right.
So, the one thing that I've learned is, I might be in a seabed of whiteness, and it might be uncomfortable for that 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, or however long it's going to be. But I know that in that uncomfortableness, I'm going to come out, and I'm going to be so obliterated with so much purity and auspiciousness that I know that all that is immaterial.
Mm-hmm.
And then to come back to the compassion piece, I don't want to come off like Martin Luther King, where I'm just like, I'm going to because I'll be the first one to tell you, I will tiger claw a bitch real quick. You know what I mean? But at the same time, and I've said this before, and I can't remember where I said it, but I want to be Malcolm, and I want to be Martin, and I want to be Che, and I want to be the Dalai Lama, and I want to put that all into one.
Right.
And that's how I want to move. I want to have the wise words in Martin, and have the clarity and the connection, and that connection with the Most High is Martin. But I want to have that radical Dharma and that radical revolutionary feel like Malcolm, the sword and the shield. And at the same time, I want to have that essence of the Dalai Lama to ground me to my highest self and to bring me back to that beginner's mind and Buddha nature. And I want to have that Che to know that when it comes down to it, I can navigate myself as a guerrilla warfare tactician. So I want to be all of that at the same time and present myself in the truest, most authentic way as possible.
And it's crazy you say that, because that's kind of the way that I live my life. The things that I learn from people, hey, I may not agree with them or like them or whatever. But the thing about it is there's going to be something that I do learn from them, and I'm going to learn to apply it to myself.
Exactly.
And that's where...
Good or bad.
That's where, you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I had all the conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the show came.
Mm-hmm.
Because of all I met Trump supporters that are rich, Trump supporters that
Mm-hmm.
are poor. I've met every race, religion,
Mm-hmm.
Gender
Mm-hmm.
that you can think of. And I've had the worst experiences to the best
Mm-hmm.
experiences, but I've learned through every situation. Even if somebody didn't even say anything, I learned something, because it's the silence is what taught me how their day's going.
And there's a little jewel, and I don't know if you remember it, but you taught me something that day, because I can't remember what had happened. I didn't have a car at the time, and I didn't have my bike, so I wasn't like bike crazy like I am now.
It was before.
Yeah, right. And I had I remember it was 20 minutes or 15 minutes, and I was freaking out, and I was like, I gotta get a Tai Chi. Boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom. And then you roll up, and then you're like, you're gonna get there. It's cool. And then we ended up having a conversation, which led to us connecting.
Yep.
And you got me there within 3 or 4 minutes of my...
I don't play.
And what was crazy about it was you were taking your time. You weren't rushing, you were taking your time. And what was beautiful about the lesson that I got from that was not only a quicker route, not only did I learn a quicker route to my class, but I learned that if I was going to be late, it's okay. And I didn't have to rush. And I probably would still get there in time anyway. And I did. So I had to give you all praises for that, because you taught me many lessons that day. And that forged the relationship to where we are right now, to come back full circle. So it's so funny that we're teaching each other life lessons, because that is what life is about.
Yeah. And, sometimes I don't really consider myself a teacher sometimes, because I feel like when I talk to people, I'm talking to myself. It's just, hey, bro, look, you need it. We're going to do this right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And me and my best friend talk about this all the time. It's when I express myself to him about how I feel, or not necessarily how I feel, what I think logically, because I try to take a step back and not use my emotions, but really talk and to understand and explain and to break things down. So then I can kind of look at it and be like, okay, yeah, let me apply this to myself too.
Clarity and connection. And, goes far, man, when you can take the time to just breathe through something and think about it rationally and take the time to really... That's why when people say to me, oh, well, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? I said, give me time to meditate on that.
Let me think about it, and then I'll tell you. Because it's crazy. There's this guy on Instagram, hood dude, and he talks about how, I can't say it's a full male thing, but it might be. But from a black male's perspective, we act on our emotions.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it's because we're using our female trait instead of using our logic that God gave us to be able to sit down and think and to understand and then process and then react to it. Where now you say something to me, I'm gonna pull it out. Where now I'm just gonna be like, oh, you're having a bad day. And I'm sorry you're having a bad day. But don't put your emotions on me. Or if somebody drives crazy, I'll roll the window down and say, hey, I love you. I care about you. And be safe.
That's that Tai Chi.
And it's crazy because there's things that I implement and apply to my life where now later I realize it's a part of Buddhism. It's a part of Tai Chi, Taoism, and, you know, Christianity, Islam, because I fast, and all these different things where I'm Christian based, but I'm doing all these different things to implement a better Aaron.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful.
That's it. That's it. I tell people all the while, man, like, stop. You trying to, hard and hard don't mesh. Hard and hard don't mesh. So when you trying to come with them those fundamental values, and you trying to smash it against somebody else who is super hard-headed, where's the balance? Where's the meetup? So it's this. And then guess what happens? And then it's this, you know, it's yeah, man, it's like, that's why I love Tai Chi so much, because it's really, you know, I was an angry dude, man. I was really angry. I was like one of them fly off the cuff type cats.
Pop off.
You know what I mean? And then to have a gun and be like that, like, ugh. So I think about it now, and I think about how Tai Chi, like, you know, people ask me all the while, like, how are you doing it in LA? And we had this conversation, like, you put yourself in the wrong position and you put yourself in the wrong place, then you're going to get, right? I'm clearly not going to go into the 60s and wear a whole bunch of red and be acting up stupid.
It'd be crazy.
I'm clearly not going to go into the jungles and be all in my blue shit and be on some da-da-da. So, and then you have to know how to carry yourself. So I really have known how to carry myself in LA, and it has really, I've made really good friends and made really good allies with people who I need to make really good allies with the brown Latinx Mexicana community. I've made my bed. I've made my allies. I've made really good connections with my brown people, right? Same thing with my black folk out here. And, you know, there was a time when, before I even came to LA, I was so shook, like, oh, can I go into this part? Can I go into this part? Listen, man, you can go into any part of the world within reason and not get touched if you carry yourself in a certain way, in a certain fashion. And I'm not trying to say that I'm Jesus Christ and that I can go walk through all these hoods and be not touched. Because one, I'm not going to put myself in that position. Yeah. But what I am going to do is, if I'm in a position where it's life and death, and I'm going to come to you in the face of compassion. 26, 27 years of martial arts, that means nothing. I'm coming to you in the face of compassion. Whether it's two black men, a black man or a black woman, yada, yada, I'm going to come to you in the face of compassion. And that's how I live my life. And I think that if you live your life in a certain way, in a certain fashion, you're going to do okay. Yeah. And here we are having this conversation as two grown black-bodied men, individuals, human on this earth, that conceive the power of love, compassion, equanimity, authenticity, determination, strength, accountability, and equability within yourself and others. That's it.
So the next one is, what are some of the daily struggles that are holding you back from your fullest potential?
Just the little mundane things like, you know, we call them dukkha's in Buddhism. Self-doubt, fear, you know, jealousy.
Typical human body.
You know, the newest thing, the newest phrase, the phrase that I love is comparison is the thief of joy. And for the longest, and I find myself sometimes I'll flip through Instagram and I'll be like, damn, I want to have it. his life or her life, or I want those shoes and I wonder how they're doing that. So, you know, it's stuff like that. Those are the little daily things. And they're easy because they're dukkha's. They're all mirages, man. They're all mirages, so yeah.
So what are you doing to overcome those little nuts and bolts that you're trying to fix?
The same thing that I always come back to. I run, I meditate, I breathe, and I really hold fast in being a very good person. That's the mantra, man. You know, I got so many damn Buddhas on my friggin' body, but you know, it's like reminders of being a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I want to do, man. At the end of the day, you know what I mean? Yeah, do I want some money in my pocket and be successful? Yeah. But what trumps that is being a really good person. At the end of the day, my legacy is when people talk about Hakim, they're like, dude, that guy was such a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
That guy was such a great dude. There are very few individuals that you can say, man, I don't have a bad thing to say about him.
And that's always the goal.
And don't get me wrong, you gotta have your haters. Haters make you thrive. You're gonna have your haters, and I do welcome that. But at the end of the day, I want to be a good person.
Yeah. So being that you've been through all the things that you've been through, what's your outlook on life now?
Being the best that I can be,
mm-hmm.
and to be a example for other folk that look just like me.
Amen.
That's really it. You know, a boy from Ipswich, Suffolk, 70, 80 miles outside of London. You know, who would have thunk that I would have come to LA, that I would be on covers of magazines, that I would be in commercials, that I would be doing photo shoots, that I would be having conversations that are global, worldwide podcasts such as yourself. You know, I didn't think that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I especially didn't think that when I had the gun sitting next to me when I was going to blow my head off. So
that's crazy.
And here we are.
Right.
So.
So what's your ultimate goal in life?
My ultimate goal, I've done so much and I feel like I've achieved a lot. My ultimate goal, that's a really good question, man. That's a really good question. And, you know, I've heard people, and I heard this the last person that you had, and it was such a great answer. But a lot of it is unattainable.
You never know.
You know? It's attainable and it's unattainable. So, you know, for me, I'm just gonna just to really live a good life, and be able to share these stories with my grandkids, and to somewhat walk a very peaceful life to where my life can be a shining light to others.
You had it. No, that's beautiful. So my last, final, and favorite question is, if you were to give someone advice that looks like you and that has been through the same things as you, what would you tell them? I love it.
I would tell somebody who looked like me Don't be afraid. 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 Have a strong sense of courage of self.
Mm-hmm.
Know that you are truly loved, and know that you can achieve anything within this existence if you put your mind to it.
Amen.
Know that you are worthy of everything and everything within this existence that we call life. And never let that hold you back. And even if, and I've said this before so many times, even if that end of that tunnel seems like a pinprick, crawl to that motherfucker, because that will grow to the size of the sun and you will be able to embellish all of that.
That's beautiful.
With that, I say peace. Namo mitofu.
Well, I appreciate you, Hawk, for taking the time to sit down with me. It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. Make sure you follow Hawk on social media and his path and his journey on, the successful path that he's about to have in life and in every endeavor that he has. And thanks for watching. We really appreciate you. Thank you. Make sure you follow us on social media, leave some comments down below, and watch out for what's next.
I just want you to know you are not alone.